Father, which art in heaven, Lord, we come to you and we ask that you pour out your Spirit upon us, that we praise you, Lord, for your wonderful mercy and for your grace, and help us, Lord, to understand these truths that we're discussing this morning, and guide us into a correct understanding. In Jesus' name, amen.
Question was raised, but it's kind of about Genesis. But I'm sure a lot of you have thought about it. So this isn't anything new, but it is amazing how the book of Genesis over the past, say, year roughly, has become present truth. Where it's always been truth, but now it's like, it's not just a couple chapters of Genesis, it's like the whole book of Genesis is not a general application of the world, a specific application general of the end of the world. Genesis chapter 1, the creation, the 7 days, how's that line up with the end of the world?
That lines up with the 7 thunders.
Lines up with the 7 thunders. You can see the 25:20 in it now. What else can you see?
The Sabbath
The Sabbath.
being the issue.
The Sabbath, but that's not all.
Marriage.
The marriage.
Oh, the marriage.
The marriage
Oh,
on
yeah,
the 6th
right.
day, the Sabbath on the 7th day.
Right.
What did you say, Lawrence?
Image of the beast.
Image of the beast. Okay.
Where's
When you
the,
get
where's the image of the beast in the creation?
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve in there, when he submits to her suggestion,
Oh, yeah.
the woman has
Okay.
taken control of the man.
Right.
Chapter 3, what do you have in chapter 3?
Everlasting gospel.
The everlasting gospel. What do you have in chapter 4? More of the everlasting gospel, 2 classes of worshipers, but what else? Oh no, it's not until chapter 6. What do you have in chapter 6?
Mystery of iniquity.
You have the flood,
The mystery of iniquity.
the mystery of iniquity. Mark sent in an email a couple days ago. I'm not going to hit all these. I'm heading to a specific point, and I'm going to go real fast. I don't know if I'm going to go real fast. I'm going to try to get there quickly so we can get through it and be done with it. But Mark pointed out the animals getting on the ark. What's that? Midnight cry. What'd you say? From here, midnight cry from here to what's the door closing? Is it?
Yeah.
And what happens after the door closes?
7
7 days. And then down in here, he's going to release some birds.
Oh no.
Doves?
Yeah,
Isn't it
one's a
raven?
raven.
Raven.
Three
One's a raven,
doves.
and if you read closely, when he releases the raven, what's he release at the same time?
The raven.
The raven?
The dove.
What's that? The dove.
The
Dove
dove.
and
The
raven.
dove and the raven together.
Okay, so you got a simultaneous release here. Does the dove ever come back? Yes, the dove comes back. Does the raven ever come back?
No.
What's a raven?
Unclean and hateful bird.
Okay, it's an unclean bird. What's a dove?
Pure sign of
Clean
the
bird.
Lord.
What does the raven do here?
He separates.
They're separated. But what does the raven do? It flies to and fro. What do
Oh, really?
the foolish virgins do at the famine?
Let me run to and fro.
Okay, so this right here is separation of the 2 classes. But this dove comes back, and Noah stretches out his hand and brings him in the ark. And then what's he do? 7 days later, he releases a dove.
So the raven comes back after.
Raven never comes back.
No.
Oh, okay.
The wicked have been separated here. It's all about the dove now. And what's this dove do when he comes back?
He has an olive. No.
Olive branch.
Is that the second?
Yep, olive branch.
leaf.
And then 7 days later,
Then
he releases this dove, and he never comes back. And then I think it's 40 days later when he opens the door. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but obviously from what we're seeing, even I'm not trying to say that we understand fully what this is. This 3-step period here is binding off Noah for a change of dispensation. You can see that because when this history is over, he's going to open the door and go repopulate the earth.
What were you going to say, Brittany?
Oh, I was just asking what the dove was marked with the raven. He released 3 doves.
First he releases a raven and the dove at the same time. Okay, the raven never comes back. It says he flies to and fro in the earth. But the dove returns.
Oh, okay.
And then after 7 days, he releases a dove again. I don't know that it's the same dove. Doesn't matter. And this dove returns with an olive branch, something that he can see, and get hope. He's realizing the water's abating. And 7 days later, he releases a dove a 3rd time. But this first dove is released with the raven. Okay, so then if we keep moving forward, you get to Genesis, and I'm passing over, of course, a bunch of stuff, but Genesis 15, what's Genesis 15?
Abraham, covenant with Abraham.
The covenant with Abraham.
4 generations.
4 generations. This is the day of the Lord. This is the point of reference for the day of the Lord, which a lot of people that jumped off this platform, the platform of this message, did so partially because they have a misunderstanding of the day of the Lord. There's a
Seems
promise.
like the same dove. It sounds like the same dove. That
Well,
you kept
perhaps, if you want it to be the same dove,
No, it is.
fine. It is?
started out as a dove and then it became she, and from then on he identifies it as that dove. That girl stays the same.
Okay. So, we're in Genesis 15. Where this is now where we're trying to land at. In Genesis 15, you have the covenant prophecy. You have 4 generations. You have the day of the Lord.
10 nations.
10 nations. Yes, the 10 nations are there. So all of this is suddenly, big time present truth. What's it teach you about the day of the Lord? That he's going to judge the nation where God's people are at right when he judges them. That's the judgment of Adventism in the United States. It's a Sunday law. And it sets up the story of Joseph. But before you get the story of Joseph, you have Genesis 18, which is present truth now. We're dealing with this on a regular basis. This is where Christ and 2 angels come and visit Abraham and tells Sarah she's going to have a child. She disbelieves it.
Genesis 16, you forgot, was Islam.
Yeah, 16, Genesis 16. How's that present truth?
That's absolutely.
Hagar and
Islam.
Assyrian.
Islam, but
Islam.
what? Yeah, Islam. That okay, but what else?
Public evangelism.
Pardon me?
Public evangelism.
Public evangelism. Islam, Ishmael and Hagar become symbol of those that want to do public evangelism in a time period when the cloud hasn't moved. You got 18 moving into 19. 19 is Sodom and Gomorrah. Mark noted here last week in Genesis 19, verse 6, and Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after him. We had already identified this as 2 doors, and this first door being the falling away of Judas, the beginning of the binding off period. But then in verse 10, but the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house and shut the door. And what he observed that we hadn't observed up until we started grappling with this binding off period is that, yes, there are two doors that shut there, one at midnight, one at the midnight cry, but they're the same door. So anyone want to add? There's a lot to...
Was 18 all about Sarah? I don't know all about Sarah and when her laughing and being in hiding and...
Yeah. There's... Okay.
A lot in Genesis.
Then Isaac's born. 2 Beershebas. You can tell that there's still light we have not recognized about the parallel histories of Abraham and Isaac and Abimelech and Beersheba. We haven't put all that together. One of them is the beginning of Adventism, one is the end of Adventism. We can see that. But there's something about Beersheba that is obviously the symbol of the 2520. Those truths are not...
And God's opening up
Yeah.
Genesis big time, and that's the beginning, and he demonstrates himself in the beginning and what it'll be like in the end, and he's opening up,
Yep.
of course, Revelation 2.
So, Isaac in Abimelech chapter 26, and then Jacob fleeing, stealing the birthright and fleeing, and marrying 2 wives, Leah
Rachel.
and Rachel. What's that? 2520s. Okay, so all of it, it's just unbelievable, but not unbelievable. Amazing is probably the right word. And in chapter 37, this is where we're heading. Joseph has a couple dreams. And what are the dreams?
That his brothers will be bowing to him. His family will be bowing to him.
And after we understand what the dreams are, how they're going to be fulfilled, what are the dreams about?
The prophecy.
The covenant, the prophecy, Abraham. This is how they go into Egypt. So Joseph's given 2 dreams about how the Lord's going to take his people into Egypt to fulfill the covenant prophecy of Abram. So what's that make Joseph?
Type of Christ.
Type of Christ. What type of Christ?
When he flee into Egypt and he was held by the wise men from the east, symbol of Islam, and
Okay, yeah, he's going to do that. He's going to typify Christ at that level too. But here, he's the one that's delivering the covenant prophecy. He's the messenger of the covenant. He goes into Egypt, and you got the story of Potiphar's wife, which you got the story of 9/11 with the Ishmaelite traders taking him to Egypt. You got the butler and the baker's dreams, and then you have Pharaoh's dream in chapter 41, and this is where we want to get to. Michael has to solve something. There was something in here. We've dealt with it, but we haven't really dead-ended it before we went a different direction. So, this being Pharaoh's dream, Pharaoh has a dream by the river. Where do we place him? We're just going to build this structure, and then we'll get to the point that we're trying to look at. And the point we're trying to look at is you have 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, and we're trying to determine exactly where these waymarks in this 7 years are of the 2 years and of Joseph's sons joining. That hasn't been dead ended yet. So this is the midnight cry. Everyone know what I'm talking about?
Well, Are you placing the end of the 7 years of famine
That's
in
what
the
we're
Sunday
talking
law?
about, I guess.
Are you placing
7 years of plenty?
No, the end of the 7 years of famine. Why are you placing it to the Sunday law? I thought it's gonna end at the close of probation.
At the close of probation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're 2 marks to the Sunday law, and then
Okay, that's
5.
what we're trying to figure out.
Oh,
So where can we take it up? Everyone knows that basic amount where we can jump into this story and count the days, right? And I think about chapter 44 probably.
45. Marks the 2 years. 45 verse 6.
Okay, but let's start in verse 43, verse 1. They're returning to Egypt. Where did they first come to Egypt? Joseph's brethren go to Egypt in chapter 42. Let's read verses 1 through 5 of chapter 42 to start with. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look upon one another? Look one upon another." And he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die." And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob, sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. So the famine's already hit. Famine's the midnight cry. Okay, so this is the first time they come down, and they come down with 10. All right. So verse 42, chapter 43. Read the first 2 verses, Brother Philip, of chapter 43.
And the famine was sore in the land. And it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said unto them, Go again, buy us a little food.
Okay, so when they come this time, how many of them are going to come this time? There was 10 that went the first time.
10.
10 are going to come the second time. What's the difference this time?
That Simeon's in prison, and Benjamin, the youngest brother's with him.
Everyone know that. So even though it's a different group of 10 both trips, it's always 10. Okay, so now where is it that you were suggesting that you want to look at this?
If
Chapter
you go
45,
verse 6.
verse 6 through 11, Brother Patrick. Everyone know what we're looking for? No. We're in this 7-year famine period, and we're going to try marking the waymarks that based upon the years, and then determine what the waymarks are.
For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God, and he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty.
Okay, so this second year is where they're at, right? And they have come to Egypt how many times at this point?
2 times.
2 times. Okay,
Go
so,
back and get,
pardon me?
they're right before that line, because they're gonna go back and get Jacob, and he's gonna come to mark that marker that you're standing at.
You're saying Jacob's going to mark the second year.
Yeah, well, they're in the second year, but they're the little period, because they're gonna come third time, and the third time marks that line specifically. Yeah.
So, let's put 1, 2, and you're saying that he's going to come at the third
Yeah.
and still be at the second year.
Yes.
How can you prove that?
We're heading that way. Okay, so
It says that there are 5 years left,
there's 5 years left.
so means that, yeah, I don't know if they're 5 full years or not.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Okay.
But what we've been marking.
But I don't know if it's important.
the 7 years.
So let's go to
46.
46 and put in place we got to do verses 1 through 4 for sure, because he goes to Beersheba before he comes back. So you can,
This is part of the logic that helps to identify. Like you're saying, oh, well, if it's full years or not, we don't know. But the logic that they go straight way and come right back, kind of puts them in the same year. You know, it's
Oh
not
yeah,
that
I'm
long.
sure they're in the same year,
Yeah.
of course.
and how many days did Sister White say it would take to get from Egypt to?
11 days.
Oh, she says?
Yeah, when they were leaving Pharaoh, when Pharaoh dies at the Red Sea, there's a quote where she says it would take 11 days to get from Egypt to the Promised Land.
Cool.
So 22 days round trip,
So,
give or take a few days in Beersheba, if they were just.
Cool. And Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes.
And then read verse 27.
And the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Egypt, were 2 souls. All the souls of the house of Jacob, which came into Egypt, were 70.
So I'm going to put this here to make a little room. You got the Mara vision at Beersheba, right? And it leads him to coming into Egypt with the number being made up of 70.
Yep.
And that would be
Sandila.
what?
Sandila.
Sunday law. Okay? Now, where to next, Brother Michael? It's in chapter 47.
Yeah. 47, if you start in verse 13, and you read through to verse 23.
13 to 23. Sister Brittany, do 13 to 18, and your dad can do
Oh, what chapter?
chapter 47.
And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egypts came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if the money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands.
Okay, let's read to verse 23 and go back and deal with it all.
Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. And give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priest had a portion assigned to them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this land day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land.
From what I can tell, there's three views that can be had that I think can all be substantiated. So they can't all be right, but at least they have enough reasoning from the passages to give you all three views set out. And one of the views is like we have right here. We say that this second year where all the land is sold marks the Sunday law. So the first year would be, from the midnight cries and to the Sunday law is the first and second year of the famine, and then you have 5 years left, and the land's been sold, and the bodies have been sold. But there's another view that maybe there isn't a repeat, and you're standing at the second year, and you have from the second year forward is 1 year, and they got rid of their cattle, and from the next year they got rid of their land and bodies, and that would put you in the 4th year of the famine. But then there's this issue that arises, and I was ready to not see this problem until I read verse 6 of chapter 45, where Joseph states to his brethren, he says, For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in which there shall be neither earing nor harvest. So he's saying in the 5 years that remain, there will be no plowing and there will be no harvest. So that presents an issue then in 47, where he's giving these people seed, and he says, go and plant the land. Do you see the issue? So there's three views that can be had. One view, he's giving them seed in the 4th year of the famine. The other view, he's giving them seed in the 2nd year of the famine. Or the other view, he's giving them seed right at the end of the famine. So the 2nd year where they sell their bodies and their lands would mark the 7th year of the famine, where they come to him and now he gives them seed and they go to sow. But all of them have a little bit of inconsistency with them.
We'll start in verse 18 of chapter 47. You're saying that you don't have to relate to this as the 2nd year. You can claim that verse 18 is being ambiguous.
It's referencing the 2nd year since the 1st year. That they came to him the 1st year, now this is the 2nd year that they came to him.
Well, I think the prophetic, the narrative, the sequence left us I think in chapter 45 the 2nd year, right? Because these 2 years has not been bred, and there are 5 years more, and in chapter 47 they sell their cattle, and it says, and he fed them, verse 17, the last part, he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. Which year is this? I understand that year is still the 2nd year of the famine. And then he says, when that year, meaning the 2nd year, was ended, they came unto him the 2nd year related from that year, meaning the 3rd year basically of the famine.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's ambiguous. It's not necessarily saying this is the same 2nd year. It could be the 2nd year in this little commentary.
Yeah. Yes. And it's reasonable because the Sunday law, where the 3rd year begins, meaning this 2nd year, they sell all their lands to Pharaoh, and we know that happens in the Sunday law. And it fits in the prophetic sequence for me.
everyone understand the
It's nice if you draw the three, so that you
The
can see
three.
the three views together.
No,
There's
this is a fourth because you didn't present what I said.
No, I think what you're saying is what I was trying to portray.
Okay.
But
this is here.
yes. Or
And we're
four,
establishing
maybe it's
that
four views.
already, we're not gonna move that because we say that's the famine.
Yes.
So we're fine with the midnight cry, so that's a definite start point.
Yeah, I think
That's
You
the
got
only
lots of
thing we're
witnesses
sure
that the
of.
midnight cry is a
Okay.
famine. Go to Amos
Okay,
8.
no, I'm agreeing.
Okay.
That's where you have to start.
No, we know there's a famine
Yeah,
here
that's
too.
what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying.
But
We're agreeing because of the other 7 that we're putting this one at the midnight cry?
no, we're agreeing because we're seeing Pharaoh's dream by the river right here, and he has a dream of 7 years and 7 years.
Okay.
So the first 7 years of plenty leads you to the famine of the midnight cry. But so
Well,
what?
we have 7 good years, 9/11, Midnight Cry, the Sunday lawn, then.
No. But anyway, this is the midnight cry. So give me one scenario at a time, Brother Michael. What are you saying?
The first scenario is you have 2 years marked, right? That'd be the end of the 7. So mark another line between right there after midnight cry, just like you do right there, Sunday law, and that's the second year, and the land is sold there. I'm just gonna keep it simple. Just that's where the land is
Second.
No, it's sold after the second year, meaning in the third year.
sold. No, I know that I'm giving him the views that I was saying, and then and then
Land
you can say
sold.
land sold there. Yep. Now the next view.
You say that, okay. You say that this is a repeated enlarge? I mean, meaning
Yeah.
that the first year is.
But before you go into
yes.
the next line, explain the logic
Yeah,
clearly
because
of
you
the
want-
first
you
line.
Yeah,
You
don't
want it-
explain all three at one time. Explain
Really, because
one
it just
This
confuses
one,
people.
this view,
based upon what?
right here, based upon the idea that when you read verses 13 through 18,
Chapter
which-
and verse.
chapter 47, verses 13 through 18, when you read this, this understanding is saying that you're going back, and this is repeating and enlarging. So Joseph's
going back to what?
going back to
The
where you
beginning
already
of the
have 2
famine.
years marked, to the beginning of the famine. So in
To the beginning of the famine here?
yes, because in chapter 45 verse 6 it says these 2 years. So this is assuming that the second year is the second year that he's talking to his brothers. So it's saying that these 2 years, so you're repeating and you're going back through this 2 years of history, and you arrive and say at the second year the land is sold.
I don't get that. It's too much. It's got to be simplified.
Look at in chapter 45, Joseph's speaking to his brothers, and he says, "These 2 years, the famine's been in the land." So chapter 45 is marking off 2 years that it's been in the land and saying there's going to be 5 more years.
Yes.
Okay, that's in chapter 45. So when you come to chapter 47, from verses 13 to 18, particularly verse 18 or 17, 18, it says, "When that year ended,"
Which would be in the second year.
We don't know.
that's the part we're taking them one at a time. When that year ended, all you can tell from the verse is you have to back up. Verse 16, "And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph." So they're bringing their cattle unto Joseph. All right, they're trading it off. And then in verse 18 it says, "When that year ended." At that point, it isn't necessarily making a claim about the second year. It's just saying that there was a year-long process when he was buying out their cattle. So
So
in
it's just one of those years, and you haven't determined which year that is.
yes. So in verse 18, "When that year ended, the cattle buying, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, We will not hide it from my Lord."
So can we get a subcategory over there? Year 1, what are they selling? Year 1,
Cattle.
what are they getting? Like, can we label the years without putting them on a line just
Well,
so we
it
can see
just
that?
said it,
No,
second
actually,
year.
Oh.
first is money, then cattle, then
So we can understand that
A key.
first.
Key.
A key,
Land,
yeah.
what land's one of them.
No, but what number do
Just
they come in? First
just
year,
say
what are they-
cattle
First they come and buy with their money.
And where's that found in the Bible? Genesis 45.
47.
47 verse
15.
14.
47 verse what?
14.
14.
He said.
It says,
And-
when money had failed.
Money fails.
But they'd already done it.
Yeah.
They'd already spent their money.
So then they're going to sell their,
Animals.
Cattle.
ultimately, they're going to sell what?
Themselves and the land.
But the order, let's put it in their order that the Bible says.
That's the order.
Land
16.
and,
Bodies.
Themselves.
and what?
Themselves.
Themselves.
It says their bodies.
Do land and bodies go together?
Yeah. It says, but our bodies and our lands.
Where?
What
No,
verse?
let's
18.
label the
Verse
verse.
18.
Okay, what verse? This is verse 13?
No, this was 16. When
Money?
No.
give your
No.
cattle
Verse,
and
verse,
when your money,
money,
fail.
14.
14. Verse 14.
14.
47,
And then 16, then you're supposed to give your cattle if the money fail.
What verse is that?
16.
Verse 16. And the land and themselves, their bodies. Verse,
18
is it?
and 19 also.
18 and 19. Okay, is that all the selling process?
The
Yep.
first two.
And that's the order it goes in.
Money fails, then they give their cattle. Their cattle.
Okay, so let's go back to this. What are they're selling their cattle
All of it, everything.
What year?
Asses, everything.
for a year.
But what year did they start the cattle sale? That's what we have to ask, right? It goes in
Well,
order.
we may not understand it until number 18, till
No,
verse
but what
18.
year do we start?
Okay,
Says
so
when the year was
but what we
ended,
were
they came
doing, what you guys,
unto him the
it's good that you
second
guys
year.
are diving into this, but Michael put forth a proposition and we started on that and you guys didn't understand it. So now we're going back in and getting our point of reference so everyone can understand it and follow the logic. But Michael has 3 scenarios proposed. Philip's saying there's 4.
Why do we have to look at them all? Why can't we take the pieces and put them where
Okay,
they belong?
because all I'm saying is there's already been some brain work
Done on
put
it.
into it where we can take one at a time and not spend the time building all 3 or 4. So let's start
This,
the first one first.
I just want to say something about the. Just
If
think
it's
about,
on point.
It's on point. Just think about why I'm saying land sold here. Because number one, it's just simple to identify. Number two, I'm not dealing with the money and the cattle. Because we're only trying to identify when is the second year. Is it the second year that Joseph arrives? Is it the second year from that year? Or is it the second year at the end of the famine? Where's the second year? So I'm just trying to identify.
The
when
second
did this-
year
Well,
at the
18
end of the famine.
18
Yeah.
tells it. Verse 18, it said, they talk about Joseph, first of all, when the money fails, and then it says, when the year was ended, they came unto him the second year.
Yes.
So,
You're not getting it.
Yeah,
What
but
is
it
the
can
year
be.
that ended?
What year
For
is it?
example,
Pardon?
today
What is
and
the
tomorrow
year
is the
that
second
ended?
day
Yes.
from today.
Only then
yes,
you
And-
can
but
determine
We
the
can
second.
say it's
Today
the
is
cattle,
the
but
first day of
that
the
still
week.
doesn't identify where it's
It
at.
can be the
It can
second.
be 2 ways, Kyle, minimum.
Minimum, yeah.
So you have to, if you can't see that, you need to figure out how you can see that before you argue just one way. It doesn't have to be marking the second year from chapter 45. It can be marking the second year in the process of Joseph buying out
Yes.
the Egyptians.
Yes.
So, to explain this first scenario that you
Okay.
want to do again.
This first scenario, put a 2 between midnight cry and Sunday law, marking that this is 2 years. And then you have a 5 there between Sunday law and the close of probation. This is the view that we've been understanding for some time. And in this process then, everything, the money, the cattle, and the land is all given to him in 2 years. And then the rest of the time, the 5 years, everything belongs to Pharaoh. Okay, so that's all I want to say about that view.
So the 1, 2, 3 on the left there is in the 2 years.
Yes.
So
It
you
would
say
have
it's
to be.
a,
On this
it's
view,
a
it would have
repeat.
to
So it would be like
Eh,
1,
on this view, it
2,
would
have
3.
Yep.
yeah,
It
that
would have
makes
to be there.
sense.
Now, can we go to the next view?
Now we'll go to the next one.
Okay, so
I like
the
that
next view, the next view is still mark your 2 to the Sunday law because we know that 2-5 is solid in the sense that
Okay,
we just know it's solid.
not the X or
Yeah, actually erase
Peripheral
the
stuff.
5. Sorry, 2, and then we'll split the 5 because this is what you have to do. So you have.
You want the waymark there?
Yep, I want the waymark there. So you have 2 years, and this is when Joseph arrives, and because that's where the narrative left us off, we continue to count 2 years from that point.
This is when Jacob arrived.
Yes, sorry. This is when Jacob arrived. Now you count 2 years forward. So put a 2 there, and then put a 3. Put another mark at the end where close of probation is, and put a 3 there. This would be splitting the 5. And so that middle mark, that between the 2 and the 3, that would be where the land is sold. In this view.
The famine's been great in the land for 2 years, and there's going to be another 5.
No.
No,
There's.
That's what he told Jacob.
Yes, that's what he told Jacob. But right there, the first 2, right over, that little marker, that's where Jacob arrives, and the famine's been great in the land for 2 years, and then you count 2 years forward because that's where the narrative has left you off. It says it doesn't say anything
This one
more.
here.
Yeah, this narrative has left you off, so you count. Now it's the money fails in that next year right there. Money fails 1, 2, 3. Yep, to that mark, right there, and there you have the land sold. So right there at that mark you would write land sold. So the structure stays the same. We have 7 years split by 2 and 5, but this is identifying when the land is sold, and it
So
would be
this
in
is the
4th
Sunday
year.
law you're saying?
Yeah. No.
No?
Sorry. The Sunday law is where Jacob is. Sunday law stays the same. Because Jacob is marking the Sunday law clearly from.
That seems more
another
confusing than
prophetic.
the first one.
Well,
I know.
okay, it's alright that it's confusing.
I'm just saying that it's.
I mean, that
We
doesn't
just
seem
wanted
to
a logical
fit as
progression.
well.
We just want to
We
find the
want
truth.
we want to rightly divide the word truth.
Yes. So there's one more view that I have, and then Philip can give you his. My last view, do another line where you mark midnight cry, close probation, Sunday law proportionately just where they are still. They stay the same.
Midnight cry. Sunday law.
Yeah. And I'm saying this because,
You're saying this is the close of probation
yes,
on this one?
on all of them. Now, in this one, the logic is because Jacob says that there shall be no plowing, no harvest. And because then, and he says for these next 5 years there shall be no plowing and no harvest, then you can't have plowing and harvest, therefore you can't have seed planting until 5 years have ended. So 2 years, Jacob says at the Sunday law, there shall be no plowing, no harvest. And so at the Sunday law, then you count 5 years forward, and that's when you can start to plow and harvest.
At the close of probation?
I'm just saying from the logic. I'm just saying
Well,
from
there
the
would be,
logic
that
of this.
wouldn't,
I
that wouldn't be
understand.
logical.
I understand. But now, so then what I'm saying then is that you draw a line right there before the close of probation, or a little more that way, and then right in there write 2. And then 3 in that other space, right in that.
Are we calling earring plowing? Because
It's
to me,
how it's defined. If you look it up in the Hebrew, earring means to plow. It's
Someone look it up, he already has.
where
Yeah.
at? What's our verse and reference? Just those of us-
45 verse 6. Okay, so then you have this structure, and what you would have then is at the close of probation, Jacob or Joseph gives everybody seed, and they can go and they can plant. Because now he says, he commands them, take the seed, go plant the land, and now he says, everything that you reap, give 1/5 to Pharaoh. So the whole land's been sold into Pharaoh's hand by the close of probation. And like I said, there's problems with all of these views in my mind. But so then,
Particularly this one.
Yeah, particularly the last one,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's the fourth view, Brother
No,
Phil?
I don't know if it's actually a fourth view because I'm not sure I understand the first view. It might be the same as my fourth view. I think that as I already said that year, here in verse 17 and 18,
Of what chapter?
it's 47. It doesn't specifically say a first year. It just says that year, right?
Yeah.
It can be any year within from 1 to 7
I
years,
see what you're saying.
And I'm contending that year is the same year in which Jacob came into Egypt, because I didn't found in the prophetic narrative any switch, any more change in the chronology, more years added or whatever. So in the same year in which Jacob comes into, they sell their cattle.
You're saying it's here.
instead of the
Yeah,
top one.
yeah, it would be in the second year. It's
Would be in the second year.
they sell their cattle because Jacob comes in the second year or
The first and second year, they've sold
Okay,
their
this
cattle
is
and given
this
their
is the money
right?
you're
Money.
saying,
yeah, money.
and this is the cattle in the second year.
Yeah.
All right.
And that second year is related to that year in which they sold their cattle, meaning it can be the third year of the famine actually after the Sunday law.
Which would mark
Which
Daniel
would be
11:42.
the next year, the year beginning of the Sunday law. That's what I'm contending, in which they sell their land. I think it's kind of the same as the first view. I don't.
Okay, so what do we know about? We may not. This may. I'm going to bring an
So you
argument.
go 3 through 7
Argument, yeah.
throughout the Sunday law to the close of probation, you're saying?
Yep, from the beginning of the third year to the end of the seventh year.
I think that in the land of Canaan, you have to have a period of time to suffer in that famine before you go ahead and start looking for some help. So even though the famine starts at the midnight cry, Jacob isn't going to be doing any journeying immediately. You don't, the very next day the famine starts, have a trouble. You take a while to start hurting.
So, yeah, that sounds logical. But why are you making that case? And what thus saith the Lord?
Because
Do you
they
have
can
for
be
making that
doing
case?
stuff in Egypt before Jacob starts journeying out there. So I tend towards what he was saying, that there's stuff going on in
How many trips are there from Jacob and his family to get them to the second year?
Oh.
3.
Yeah.
10, 10, 70. Yes?
Yes.
Is that, but do we agree at least at one level that he's there in the second year?
Yes.
And if this is the Sunday law because of the number 70, then there is a binding off period before the Sunday law, is there not?
Yeah.
And in the story of Abigail and in the story of Elizabeth, what ends right here, or what's marked right here?
Hiding.
Over.
A hiding is taking place. But this isn't simply a period of time, it is a point in time. So what are the Egyptians saying here in verse where is it? Verse 18.
Do not hide it
Chapter
from the
40.
Lord.
The hiding ends there. We will not hide it from the Lord.
Oh, and the tarry not, come to me. Joseph said to Jacob.
So that would put this in the binding off period right before the Sunday law.
The binding off is the Sunday law.
The period right before. So the famine's been waxed.
If the
and
5 months of Elizabeth and the covert of Abigail is here, the 5 months ends here, and this is the covert. This is midnight, but it's also the midnight cry simultaneously. Therefore, at the Sunday law level, this is midnight, this Sunday level, it's right here. The hiding ends at the
And
Sunday
then, so
law.
the 5 would go from the Sunday law.
If that works.
Yeah, yeah.
If that contributes, I think. If you're not getting it, what Michael's arguing is a hard one. That there be no earing, no plowing, if that's what it means, no plowing. If what we're saying about this structure here is correct, he's arguing that there's no earing in here, no plowing in here.
Yeah, for whom should it be?
Is that what the word really means, or is it
You're
putting
means
on
plowing.
heads of fruit? I mean,
Yeah, that sounds
It sounds like
very-
it's
means
budding
plowing,
out,
so-
but he says in the Hebrew it's a
It
word
means
for
plowing.
plowing.
Yep.
No, what were you saying?
Should there be a plowing
Yeah.
after the Sunday law for whom?
The 11th-hour workers.
No, it's before the Sunday law.
Good question.
The who's getting plowed
And that's
here?
mostly the gathering then.
Yeah, this is a harvest time period.
This is
Nobody's
the
plowed.
Seeds would be sown there, and rain would come, but the plowing ends here. but it was plowing and
Harvest.
Harvest and
No harvest, no
no earing and
harvest.
Harvest.
Yeah,
No
earing and harvest. There shall be no
Is-
earing, no harvest.
is there a harvest here?
Yes,
Yeah.
there is.
Greatest harvest.
So,
My point was, I understand this line right here, this top one, is correct because the structure 2 and 5. My only point was that somehow it seems as though you got to receive the seed at the end, but then that puts a problem because what in the world would they be doing with the seed at the close of probation? So then I thought, well, maybe there's somehow that you can see that they sell their bodies and their land as representing Daniel 11:42, which makes sense because you have those two classes, the Libyans and the Ethiopians, so you can have that little marker there. But I don't know.
I didn't follow your logic. I'm
Don't
Brother
stand
Tyler.
Go that way.
Pardon me.
Stand in the
Someone's got an air conditioner on. It's blowing cold up here.
what was I gonna
Put your
say?
songbook on it.
The seed potentially could be, I don't know if the logic still holds true at this point, because it's been a while and we haven't looked at it, but we have Christ right there being persecuted when he was a baby, and it's representing the martyrdom, it's a seed. So maybe that's the seed that Michael's talking about. If he were trying to find a seed at the end of the close of probation.
Well, but that comes before the close of probation in here.
Yeah.
But if it's a binding off, then it happens at the close of probation.
Okay, so let's draw some conclusions. Or are we not going to touch
Where's
this?
the only spot where there is no plowing and harvest allowed?
at the close of probation.
The only spot. You have to set it
Everywhere,
there and work
it's all,
backwards.
it's all
then, right?
done for everybody, right? The close of probation is finished.
Even prophetically, even in the 7 last plagues, a symbol of the 7 last plagues is the destruction of Jerusalem. And the destruction of Jerusalem, it says it's going to be plowed like a field.
So there's always a plowing.
So you have to rightly divide the word of truth. Go ahead.
I think it's like we've come to understand the everlasting gospel, that at one level it can represent just a purification. You see the 3 steps, and it's representing a demonstration of character and not the whole everlasting gospel. There may be different types of plowings, different aspects to the same thing that aren't showing the same thing.
Plowing it like a field is not plowing it to make a harvest.
No, it's a punishment. That's what I'm saying. Plowing can be.
So it has
Exactly.
to be, it can be a punishment without
Without a group being
Why?
plowed.
I don't understand that. Why? Why? What?
it can be plowed like a field and not be a plant.
To get ready to plant.
Where
To just move
in
it
wartime,
outward.
sometimes they would plow people's land and then seed it with salt, so it would never grow again.
Really?
So it's yeah, it's a different kind of plowing. It's a punishment.
Destruction.
Oh.
So let's go up here. Pharaoh has a dream at 9/11. 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. And 2 times, or 3, I don't know how to say it, 2 times his brothers are going to come, but the 3rd time everyone comes. And how many does that equate to? 70.
Yeah.
So that is what?
The Sunday light, Tom Perry.
It's a Sunday law, but it's the joining of the 2 sticks.
Yeah.
Okay, so right here, that's a Sunday law. And in this history, we know if they went there and back, and they didn't go there and back because you have Beersheba in there, but they could go back there in 22 days if you didn't throw Beersheba in there. So it's the same year, and we're told that this is the 2nd year, right?
Yeah, so there's 2 years between those 2 lines.
2 years. But our confusion, if we have confusion, is the sequence of buying the money failing, the cattle being sold out, and
They separate.
Slavery.
The money and the cattle kind of go together. And then.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
No,
Money
they
fails
don't.
first.
No, they
Money
don't.
fails first. Then they.
Yeah,
go
money
together.
fails first, and then they sell them all their animals, and then once that's done,
It's very specific, my dear. So it is. Read it again.
I have been.
Verse 14 and 16.
The
It's
money
a process.
money took a period of time to fail. The cattle were sold out, and that gave them a period of time, and then they sold their lands, and that bought them the rest of the time. They're trying to get through the famine.
But
so-
it talks about the money and the cattle, and then they separate it out. They separate that because it says, and when the year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and that is when they said, well, what are we going to have to do? Sell our bodies and our land? That's the next step, because at the end of that process is when it was kind of like a separation. First the money and the animals were first, and then it was separated into the land and their bodies.
Why did they sell the bodies before they sold the land?
It was
I
kind
think
of
they said
together.
no. They said the lands and the
Together.
bodies
Together.
together.
You know, it's
Money,
just bodies and
cattle,
Yeah, as
land and themselves together.
land and themselves, it's like
Yeah,
a
they did.
package.
Yeah, but
But
They're not just giving them their farm. They're saying we're going to stay on it and be your slaves to
Oh,
right.
manage your farm.
But they do say we in our land, us in our land. That was what the
I have a question here. You say, oh, it's not reasonable that they plant in the third year, right, or in the fourth year, because let's say if I would use my logic, they receive seed in the third year, and they plant seeds, and then you have some harvest after that. But would it be more logical or reasonable to plant in the sixth year, where the famine was maybe the greatest?
No, they wouldn't plant in the sixth.
Because in
They
the
plant
sixth.
in the seventh.
Oh,
year.
in the seventh year. In the
They would
seventh
plant
year.
when the famine's over.
Yeah.
In that.
No, it's not over.
And yeah, after
The famine is over when the seventh year. When the seventh year
yes,
is
that's what I'm
finished.
saying. They
Yeah.
come to him.
So-
They get the seed, and then they plant when the famine's over.
When the famine is
That's-
over.
that's
then,
what I'm
okay.
saying.
They don't
So-
plant in the
At
famine.
least in that view, I'm not even stuck on it. I'm just saying
Oh, no,
it
I'm not
does
saying
seem
you're-
contradictory
I-
to our understanding. 'Cause
I'm
he
just
says
saying
there-
that it's not.
Joseph says there will be no plowing and no harvest. Hey, let me give you seed at the second year of the famine, so you can go plow and plant.
So
That-
they do it
that's
in
what's-
the 7 years. They can do it because they receive it from Pharaoh.
Yeah. They go to him and say, hey, we need to plant because the famine's over. Give us seed so that we can go and plant and survive.
so they have food.
So we'll
and
give you the
seventh
rest of
year.
what we got. And Joseph says, once you do plant and harvest, 1/5 of everything you have goes to Pharaoh. And that's when this system is set up, and he buys out everything that way and then gets a tithe for Pharaoh. Or but I'm not stuck on that view, I'm just saying.
In spite of not being able to fully resolve that issue, do we know that this second year is the Sunday law?
Yes,
No,
absolutely.
Why? How many witnesses? I mean, what's
the
the
70 joining of the two sticks.
the joining of the two
2
sticks,
and 7.
the 70,
At the end of 2 years, you're saying?
the end of 2 years? That's
Yes.
okay, that's the Sunday law.
Yes.
So that's when your money and your cattle are gone. at
Gone,
the Sunday
and all you
law.
have left is your land and your bodies.
So you got a little time
It's
of
the-
trouble where you have your land to live off that you developed during the crisis right before the Sunday law.
Before you have to flee.
Where you have to get rid of your.
Daniel 11:41, the king of the north captures the glorious land, and then in verse 42 he stretches his hands upon Egypt. And at that point, the gold and the silver, the precious things are all given over to the papacy. He gets everything in this history, right? This is verse 42.
So basically, after the Sunday law, the money would start to fail the cattle and the land, according to Daniel 11:40 to 45.
Yes.
That's not what
Right.
it says.
No,
It's
no, no,
saying
no,
that
no.
money and cattle
already
go
know,
first.
we're already starting it. The United States is already starting in it happens first in the United States, and every country on the globe is following an example.
Oh,
The image of the beast test leads to the Sunday law. You're going to have to lay that line over there. There's what prepares the people of the United States to pass the Sunday law is an escalating crisis where Sister White says they're going to go to their legislators and say we need to return to temporal prosperity.
Economic crisis.
So there's a
going
temporal
on.
prosperity removed in the United States prior to the Sunday
Sunday
law,
law.
which is typified here by money and
Money
cattle,
and cattle, yeah.
that leads to here, the 70. But afterwards, the whole world has to receive the mark of the beast if it wants to buy or sell. This is
And
true.
Ellen White also says that in the end, there will be slaves reenacted.
Slavery's going to
And so if you have got land and you have to work your land for someone else, that's the same type of thing that this is talking about.
So what I'm saying is, and I'm bringing this to a close, I'm 3 minutes late. What we're teaching about this is still sound enough to defend.
Yeah. Even if we can't.
Answer every single question.
Michael's just trying to
Maybe
be more specific.
I just a point. Now that you think that the money and the cattle and the land start before the Sunday law to be given to the papacy, but we know that before the Sunday law, Egypt is United States, and after the Sunday law, Egypt is a symbol of the whole world. That's what I understand. It's a dragon. Which
Okay,
becomes a
so-
tempting. So maybe the fact that these verses are kind of ambiguous, it shows this progressive
Fall.
giving.
First the United
From
States, first the, and then
First
the
the
world.
United States, then the world.
When they get
Beginning
their
at
land,
the
it's
midnight
done
cry,
in 42.
ending at the close of probation.
Stretches forth his hand upon
Maybe.
the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape.
And there's two classes, the priests and all those who are servants, the Libyans and the Ethiopians.
Brother Jack, you want to pray?
Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for your love. Thank you for this day. Lord, I just ask you to continue to open our minds for understanding, that we will be able to be faithful to the end. I ask that you'll be with us as now as we travel back home. Guide and direct us in our work today. And Lord, help us be ready to go home with you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.